In the 1970s, the Philippines turned to geothermal out of necessity. Today, it may be its biggest clean energy advantage. In this exclusive eco-business interview, I speak with Francis Giles Puno of First Gen on why geothermal is moving from underdog to strategic advantage and what the next 50 years could look like. Thank you so much, Giles, for taking time to speak with us today. It's a pleasure.
Nice to meet you, Eunice.
Nice to meet you. Okay, let's start with congratulating you perhaps for a very, very significant milestone. EDC, as we used to call it, is now very much part of a new platform,
Yes.
First Gen Geothermal Renewables.
Yes.
And yesterday's event, I think, solidified, your status as a world leader in geothermal verticals industry as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your journey and EDC's, from your perspective as a CEO. What does this milestone represent for you? And of course, how does it reflect the leadership in this case for the Philippines?
If a little bit of background on the Philippines, we're a country that's not very wealthy with fossil fuel. So we don't have a lot of coal, nor do we have a lot of gas. So during the 70s, during the oil crisis, we had to be more innovative. And so one of the resources that was there was geothermal, and also hydro. So when you look at, especially today, given the concerns over climate change, I think the Philippines is way ahead of its time because it didn't have fossil fuels and it had to make do with what was available. So geothermal was there. Of course, the complexity of geothermal really had to be taken into consideration. We didn't have any know-how. We learned from whoever we could learn from, and we took a lot of risk. So 50 years later, geothermal is a very well-established technology. But having said that, despite the fact that we're 50 years old, the next 50, I think, is even more exciting because there's new technology coming in. You have AI, you have advanced geothermal systems, you have enhanced, and they also call it enhanced geothermal systems. So it's a big opportunity for a company like First Gen through EDC to step up to the plate, acknowledge that the world is changing, that they appreciate more and more the role of base load 24/7 renewable energy. And that's the uniqueness that geothermal can provide. And of course, in the broader sense, for us, it's really creating a unique portfolio of renewable energy sources. So we have geothermal, which is a strong foundation. Hydro is also a big platform of ours. We have, at some stage, the largest wind farm in the north. And solar will get bigger and bigger. We see solar as contributing more and more to the system. But obviously, solar right now, you see the cost curves going down. And so it's more, we see that contributing more into the supply of the grid, but you just have to deal with the intermittency. So I guess for us, as a company, as a power generation company in the Philippines, we think we're very unique because we have really a significant portion of our portfolio in the renewable energy space. Although we grew in the natural gas space because we also help government harness what was then the largest investment of its kind in natural gas.
Yeah.
But having said that, that natural gas run is also running out, so to speak, because of the fact that the available gas from indigenous sources is dwindling.
Yeah.
And so we've also had to establish an LNG or import capability. And so last year, we decided to sell down a controlling stake to Prime Infrastructure. And so we continue to own a 40% stake. But that also allowed us to, in fact, pivot more of our investable capital in favor of renewable energy.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. you talked about
a lot's been happening.
yes, yes. And thank you for the context. I think you have set the stage for a lot of questions to be asked regarding the decisions that were made along the years. But I'll start perhaps with 50 years ago, when how this even started was actually because of a looming energy crisis at that time that Philippines faced. Interestingly enough, we are kind of in the situation where we're seeing history repeat itself with the US-Israeli war against Iran. There are very much concerns about the energy situation or the security of energy moving forward.
Yes.
How do you see this from your lens, and especially with regards to building the foundations, with a lot of questions being asked around what alternatives do I have? Could you share your
Well, we've been a very strong believer in geothermal, more specifically. But also, I call geothermal an underdog technology, because most power developers will rather focus on the conventional development. So that will be natural gas or coal. But as I said earlier, because we didn't have that as a large portion of our indigenous resource, we had to address what we had. The reason why I say it's underdog, it's primarily because when in the Philippines we have what we call the Electric Power Industry Reform Act. It was a law passed over 20 years ago, wherein the thought of the lawmakers was really to allow for the power industry to further privatize. And not only that, be much more competitive, to the point where consumers are given a choice on where they buy their electricity from. What we experienced, though, was quite challenging, in the sense that when consumers are given a choice, their first priority is what's the cheapest source available. And so, and even up to today, that's still the choice. However, when you have a disruptive market like what we have today, then was that choice the smart choice? They've been living for it comfortably for quite a long time. But when the spikes come in, and you have volatile prices from imported coal and imported gas, that's when I think we can really show the benefit of being able to provide our consumers with fixed rates over a prolonged period. Or even if we escalate it, our escalation rate will not be to the same volatility that we are now experiencing. So in many ways, the fact that consumers will have more choice also leads itself to a situation where they also have to learn that it's not simply a single variable, which is price, but more so as we nurture our relationships with our own customers, what we're finding out is that it's really a journey with them. Even listening to our customers, what they're also telling us is that, this pathway, this journey to net zero, we don't quite understand it. Can you help us with that process? So you're now in that situation where the industry itself is moving towards a very dynamic phase, where what customers want is also very important to us. And so we have to address what customers want and hopefully come up with a product or service that addresses them completely, not only from a price perspective, but from the 5 factors that I just mentioned.
Interesting. So it seems that you needed a little bit of intuition to understand the market sentiments and the people's psyche. But also, I think I'm picking up from you that the need to be bold in some of the decisions that you're making. And it also takes me back to the speech that you had yesterday, where you had 3 bold lessons that you learned along the way.
The first one was basically, I just wanted to say that developing geothermal, once it's completed, it's like, wow, it's fantastic. But people or the stakeholders don't appreciate what it took to get there.
Exactly.
It really requires quite a bit of boldness. It's not for the faint of heart.
Exactly. That was the term you used. It is invaluable once you have built it, but it is not for the faint-hearted.
That's great.
Yes, which was very interesting. And the second one I think you talked about was that it's expensive.
As I said, it's for a country like the Philippines, it's necessary for energy security. Because it is what we have. And we're fortunate to be now in a market where consumers, particularly large consumers, large corporates, are appreciating the fact that they have to monitor their carbon emissions. And so buying electricity from renewable sources is part and parcel of their criteria when they buy electricity from the market. The third one is really that when I look at the development of geothermal, um, one of the biggest advantages of geothermal is it's a very localized investment. And so what you really have to do is develop the community around it. And I could say, hand on heart, that when you look at every geothermal investment we made, usually they're located in remote areas where there's a small city, but all those cities now are larger and more established and thriving, principally because they have access to clean, renewable, baseload electricity.
Yes. No, I think that that is very, very insightful for someone who has to build something without necessarily a blueprint to follow.
Yes.
And I mean, perhaps if you could share a little bit more about the key technical and institutional challenges that you faced along the way.
One of the biggest challenges really is the exploration phase of geothermal. It's no different from oil and gas. I always say the advantage of oil and gas is that many of the oil and gas players play a portfolio game. They do exploration, and they can just time their investment when the market conditions are great. And so at that stage, they can extract the fossil fuel from the ground, either coal or gas or oil, and then sell it in the global market. Geothermal has a constraint. It is really, what you're really just extracting is steam from the ground. And when you extract that steam from the ground, you want to divert that steam into a steam process, no different from a coal-fired plant. And then once you use that, your waste steam or your waste brine is then re-injected back into the system. That's the reason why geothermal is a great technology for renewable energy, because what we do is whatever waste, steam or brine we produce, we re-inject back to the system for the whole geothermal reservoir to recharge itself. And of course, the other benefit which the Secretary of Energy herself appreciated more and more was that we are also in a position where the biodiversity, trees, and all of the biodiversity surrounding the geothermal development, we have to protect. Because otherwise, what will happen is the recharge rate also suffers. So you need rain, but you also need the trees to sort of absorb that rain so that the water seeps through and recharges the geothermal reservoir.
So in a sense, you are very much respecting the indigenous land in which you're building your facility as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd love to talk a little bit about the strategic evolution then over the years. And a major inflection point came in 2007 when the company was privatized.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I guess the question I have is how did some of these, I guess, junctures shape your thinking around long-term investments, around portfolio diversification, and I guess with a lens of the wider environmental operating, conditions that are ahead of you?
Well, we saw ourselves also always quite pioneering, because when we got into the power generation business, we first of all had to respond to, typically it was a crisis.
Okay.
So our first investment was in an oil-fired plant because it was the power crisis of the country when it was recovering. And that was under the contract with government. And then subsequent to that, there was a finding of natural gas, and they needed a market. And we stepped up to the plate. We said, okay, we'll create the power plants. And we sold it under long-term power purchase agreements. And then we had that Electric Power Industry Reform Act, which basically sort of envisioned how the industry was going to evolve from having only one or two customers, which is usually the large utility or the state-owned utility, to suddenly having 100, 200, 300, 400, and more customers, we had to really change our mindset that we're not just simply selling to that one utility, but we had to be much more customer centric. And that's when that idea of creating a portfolio of of unique generation assets came into play. The other big factor was the Paris climate change.
Okay. Yes.
And when that
2018.
happened,
Yeah.
that really signaled our view that climate change, especially a country like the Philippines, was always vulnerable. And so what all of that translated into sort of hard thinking within the management team as to, okay, how do we direct whatever retained earnings we were generating in favor of a portfolio that is built for the future.
Yeah.
When the opportunity to invest in EDC as part of the privatization of government came in, we felt that that was such a unique opportunity because previously we were in gas and we tried to go overseas, in fact. But when you go overseas, we had at that time 1,500 megawatts of gas capacity. For the Philippines, it's big. For the other countries, we're like a decimal point. So we didn't really have anything to add in the sort of the capabilities in the international setting. Geothermal was unique because even at that time, even with a little over 1,000 megawatts of capacity, you were already practically the largest geothermal operator in the world.
Yeah.
Or top two or top three. So
You were blessed with it.
It was really well positioned.
Right.
And the question is, can we do more with that capability?
Yes.
Obviously, there were adjustments because this is typically when you go through privatizing a government company, then you really had to change the sort of the cultural mindset in the company to be more private sector driven, to be more efficient, and to look at opportunities not only in the Philippines but also overseas.
Okay.
So that was really sort of for us a game changer.
It's incredible. Yeah. No, I understand. Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Philippines, and you are no stranger to natural calamities. The average is 22 typhoons a year, and
Yes.
I foresee that potentially even growing in light of the situation at the moment.
Yes.
I guess my question is drawing from EDC's experience with geothermal, and as you mentioned, hydro, solar, wind, etc. How do you think about system resilience in terms of portfolio diversification as well as in engineering of infrastructure that can withstand such extreme extremities?
Yes. One of the things that we experienced ourselves was damage because of very strong typhoons. So when you have a situation where typhoons really happen and it hits your assets directly, you're realizing that the assets itself are not built the way they should be built today compared to what it was built when it was originally 20 years ago. And it really had to withstand the strong typhoons. So one of the things that we did was, as we experienced damage, we decided to build stronger. We build better. The Philippines is a country that's sort of always hit by strong typhoons, as you mentioned, 22 over 22, almost going through the alphabet.
Yes.
And so, and it does affect our assets sometimes directly because of the strong typhoons and the strong winds. And the assets themselves were not built the way assets should be built today. So we experienced severe damage in some of our assets. And what we had to do is wake up to the fact that when we build and when we rebuild and repair, we had to build it for current situation, or in fact, even stronger wind factor. And so that's what we did. I could say that the benefit was that originally we had to claim insurance,
right,
for all of this damage as well as lost revenue, and so we were not very popular with the insurance markets. But our story to the insurance market was that we were going to build better and build stronger. And so I was just given a report from our guys who just did a roadshow. And they were saying what EDC did right now is in the last few years, we didn't have any claims on the natural calamities. So we actually
Yes.
said
That's
what we asked what we said we were going to do, which is to build it to be much more capable of withstanding stronger typhoons, stronger winds. But of course, that doesn't mean that it's going to be cheaper. It's more the reverse. It's going to be more costly because obviously we have to spend for the more robust design.
Yes, yes. Risks do come with rewards.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears to today's focus. And given that, now you've given, with the launch of first gen renewables geothermal, you've given this platform now that is dedicated with a strategic focus on the business
Yes.
of geothermal. What opportunities make this the right moment for that sharpening of this focus? And also, how would enabling technologies, for example, energy storage, be supporting this geothermal role?
Yes. So, uh, first and foremost, sometimes it's just hard lessons that you learn directly. Uh, I remember when we closed a contract with a leading multinational, and we came into the signing of the office of the customer. We were going to sign the supply agreement, and I had a name card, and we were six others. I think we had probably amongst the six of us, we had four different name cards representing the same company. And some of them are driven by the fact that the name cards were just simply based on the legal entity.
I see.
And so it was an eye-opening experience for me, not only for me, but also the team. It says, we can't represent ourselves to our customer this way
I see.
because we are really one.
Yes.
And so that led to a unified branding campaign, which you saw we
Congratulations.
celebrated last night, which
Yeah.
is essentially we're unifying it under the first gen brand, and then moving forward, since practically all of our assets are in the renewable energy space, we can't just assume that customers will know us as first gen. I think we're approaching it with a lot of humility that there has to be a bit of name recognition that we have to earn in the market, and that they should associate us with the investments that we consciously make, that is focused on renewable energy. So we have to really start from scratch in many ways, and build the trust that we can hopefully build with our customers.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I guess coming towards the end of my interview, I'd like to talk about the legacy that the company will leave, perhaps with a lens of the next 50 years.
Yes. Right now, we're primarily focused in our country, in the Philippines, in the Philippine market. But even as I mentioned in the celebration last night, the our aspiration from a geothermal perspective is to go overseas. In fact, we were very uh, fortunate to have our joint venture partner, as a senior representative of our joint venture partner in Indonesia, come over and celebrate with us as well. So one of the things that we really are aspiring to be is really becoming more known globally, not only as a company that does geothermal in the Philippines, but also overseas. And Indonesia is right now the second largest market in geothermal. So we hope to be able to make a significant impact in developing geothermal in what is known as the second largest geothermal market in the world. And so choosing a good partner is a prerequisite to that. And the fact that we have capabilities that we can jointly build on,
Yes.
I think is a very formidable, combination. And so we hope that we can create a significant impact. Indonesia has a challenge in the sense that it has a lot of indigenous coal. So the challenge in Indonesia is for really customers themselves to overcome that
Inertia, yeah.
yeah that the fact that everything is coal,
Yes.
to to be in a position to say, well, I don't want it to come from coal, but I'd like it to come from a renewable resource. you know, you also probably can appreciate the fact that in today's world, because of AI, the massive buildup of data centers is already happening today. We ourselves sell to data centers today, and many of the data centers are very sensitive to the fact that they need to uh, to power their requirements through renewable energy
Day and night.
day and night,
Exactly.
which is perfect for geothermal. So the whole idea really is to be able to develop geothermal to complement the needs of, particularly of consumers that have day and night requirements for renewable energy. And it's not simply solar. And you tack on, sometimes what they do is our competitors is they sell it from solar, but they buy it from the market at night. And when you buy it in the market at night, by definition, you're also buying it from coal. At least that's how it works in the Philippines. And what they do is they tack on a renewable energy certificate to say that it's all renewables. But truth be told, it is not. And so in practice, it's more meaningful even for our customers to appreciate the fact that what we are delivering to them is in fact baseload renewable energy. So to the extent that we can expand this opportunity of developing more of these of geothermal across the world, not only in Indonesia, but maybe in Latin America, in other countries, then that would be a fantastic, I think, legacy
Absolutely.
that we can embark on for the next 50 years. On top of the fact that the science itself and the technology itself is also advancing.
Yes.
Where it used to be very site specific, but hopefully there's also technology in the future where you can just harness the heat from the ground and then use that as a way of generating energy for the needs of consumers.
Okay.
So that's it's in that sense we're really just scratching the surface.
Yes.
And the next 50 years is really that boldness
Yeah.
of being able to understand that that if you can think with innovation, if you think with engineering solutions, use AI to map out all your data, to be able to analyze all that complicated data, then hopefully there's a solution that we can provide that can provide our customers with all of the requirements from renewable energy, but it doesn't only have to come from geothermal. It can come from a portfolio of renewable assets, which is what we have today.
Yeah.
Renewable assets from geothermal, from hydro, from wind, and from solar. And to the extent it's a factory, we can also set up solar panels on top of the rooftop and really be there a sticky so for them to be sticky customers.
Sticky customers, yeah.
Which is always the goal.
Yes, the holy
of many
grail.
company.
Yes.
To have sticky customers that will grow with us
Yeah.
for a long time.
Exactly, yeah. If you could indulge me with one more question, and this is regarding the issue of skills shortage in the energy transition. And I'm sure you are at the front seat of some of that challenge with skilling up a workforce in the renewable sector and moving a lot of these workers from brown to green.
Yes.
What advice would you give to some of these, I would say, executives and business leaders today that are skeptical about that transition?
One of the things that we're experiencing is, especially the younger generation today, when they're looking for work, they care. They
Right.
care about the future. They care about the fact that they can pursue a career that's sort of mission and purpose driven. And so there are many companies that they really have that as part of their business philosophy. In our case, our mission is to forge collaborative pathways towards a decarbonized and regenerative future. It's a number of words that we really selected quite consciously, in the sense that you have to be collaborative,
Yes.
but really your goal is to move towards a sustainable and decarbonized future. And how do you do that? You can only do that with the best talent out there. I think we're still very fortunate that despite the fact that the world is competitive, that finding talent is a competitive undertaking, that we can find many of these young graduates who want to learn how to be able to harness renewable energy resources or work and market or provide or trade, but trade a renewable platform. That really makes it a little bit more challenging because you always feel like you have your one hand tied behind your back because of the constraints that you impose on yourself, that you wanna trade these renewable energy sources of electricity to customers. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I think we've been very fortunate because we really have very good talent. I call it talent density in the organization, and you need to develop that talent density with technical skills, whether you're an engineer, economics, uh, finance, marketing, the whole good HR people. So we really need all the talent that we can get out there. And the Philippines, despite its setbacks, we have been very fortunate to be able to hire a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And even even talent who have spent most of their careers, for example, in oil and gas, they realize that geothermal is a great shift.
Yes.
So rather than exploration for geothermal, rather than drilling a well for oil and gas, they'll drill a well for geothermal steam. So it's been, and you can see their excitement.
Yeah. Because you want to leave a sunset industry to move to a sunrise one.
That's correct.
So if you think about that long term, I would invest in something that has a growth prospect to it.
That's correct.
Very nice. Okay, I'm going to leave you now with a last question, if I may. And this ties in, as I mentioned, the looming energy crisis as a result of the ongoing war that's happening. Looking back at those days and the decisions that were made then, and fast forwarding it to today, what advice would you give to regional leaders that are caught between a rock and a hard place? Obviously, you have to start to move away from what you've been used to
Yes.
into something that perhaps has unknowns in there.
Yes.
What advice would you or perspective would you
Well,
share?
it's clearly not a one size fits all.
Mm.
So for a country like the Philippines, some of our stakeholders say, "Oh, why is power so expensive in the Philippines?" I always say you have to compare it apples to apples. If you compare the Philippines as a country that doesn't have a lot of indigenous resources, particularly from fossil, then you compare it to other countries that have also limited resources, Japan, for example, or even Singapore, our power rates match.
Yes.
And so it requires government support. It requires customers to really clamor for more sustainable sources of energy. And you cannot just say one day and then the next day have it.
Yeah.
It's really quite a tedious exercise and quite a challenging journey to go through a decarbonization journey with all your stakeholders. Because after all, your customers, they don't want to pay for the most expensive source of electricity. But to the extent that you have other sources of electricity that are available, then that's great. So for example, when you have solar and wind, which is obviously intermittent, the fact that battery costs have gone down
Yes.
has really been a great complement. But what we did was we pivoted that investment into a large hydro pump storage facility.
Right.
And pump storage facilities are fantastic because what they do is they enable more intermittent renewable energy from coming online that will really complement an ability of a country like the Philippines to grow solar and wind and other intermittent sources of renewable energy. And at the same time, be able to deliver to our customers the electricity needed through through wind, solar, and other sources at the time if they're available. But if they're not available, that excess capacity can be used to pump, can create more energy so that when the pump storage needs to kick in, it's still there coming from renewable energy.
I learned so much from you, Sir Giles. Thank you so much for the lessons learned, shared perspectives. And I hope this becomes a an inspiring note to the others that are going through
Right.
that journey as well. We look forward to having you again. This podcast was hosted by EcoBusiness, Asia's leading media serving the region's sustainability community. Join the conversation by visiting ecobusiness.com, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our newsletters. Thanks for listening.